How do I get the mic? Oh, there it is. Classic opening. Um, Hello. Does everybody have pizza? Uh, cool. Well, welcome to my talk. A programmer has no name. This is a very hard talk to pitch, and I wasn't thinking about having to do that, so we'll see how it goes. I'm Ryan LeBove. I am an engineering manager at Envoy. Um, we challenge the status quo of workplace technology. We also are that iPad check-in thing over there, among other things. Um, but I started Envoy as an IC and then a tech lead, and now I'm an engineering manager, so I'm not just like here to manage things. But I do want to talk about some anti-goals and goals for this talk. I don't want to teach you every adjacent trade to programming. That's not practical to do in 30 minutes. I don't want to teach you the top 10 tricks to make it as a solo programmer. I also don't want to just be theory with no takeaways. So what are my goals? I'd like to demonstrate how to use leverage as a tool, how to multiply your leverage, and how to defeat technical FOMO. These seem like three very specific goals, but I think it'll make sense when I just get going. Also, this is like the most metal slide deck I've ever put together, so I'm very excited. So we'll kick off with the hubris of programmers. Bad joke. As a founder, what's the easiest way to make your first technical hire? You launch your unmade product on Product Hunt, and you hire the first person that says, I could build that in a weekend. You get a very cheap MVP and maybe somebody who can make more stuff for you. But really, like, if this is possible, why do we have things like Slack and Twitter? One of the people I work with said, Twitter's basically just a list you can add on to. Like, what do their hundreds of engineers do? Which I'm sure that hundreds or thousands of engineers at Twitter have plenty of answers about this. Like, I've heard one of them say, like, they ran out of numbers they could use and had to invent something new. Like, that's a non-trivial problem, but still. And so I did some research, and they'd have some engineers. I don't know. So maybe let's reframe this with, can an individual programmer make a disproportionate difference? Yes. We're going to qualify a little bit more. I'm not going to read all of this, but essentially some dude at Google was like, I just tweaked this algorithm, now Google makes 4 times as much money. So like, that's not what we're talking about today. Like, that happened in the context of a much larger machine, and that's something that's like winning the lottery, not something you should you should totally do that if you can, but that's not like the best strategy for being successful at life. So let's rephrase a little bit. Can independent programmers make a disproportionate difference? And so I'm going to walk you through 3 hypotheses. 2 of them are negative and 1 of them is positive. So let's start with Joel Splosky. He did some things like Trello and Fog Creek and other stuff. Like, he's kind of a programming famous person. But he says, no, programmers deliver code, not products. So like, he wrote this blog post that's basically like, very talented programmer works a job that they hate, and they're like, I could do this so much better. My codes are perfect. And they saved money, and they like got this cheap apartment. Oh no, our sound's out. Okay, I'm fine. Sorry. That's great. I do like to hear myself talk, but he's like, I'm just gonna go lock myself in an apartment, and he did, and he made just like the perfectly coded product and had 0 sales. And he ran out of runway, and he goes back to this big, not vindictive company. It's just like, I couldn't do it on my own. And of course, they're just going to be like, welcome back. You know, you're super talented. We know you can deliver valuable things. So we're just going to plug you back in. It's fine. And so like, Joel's way of saying this is, the level a programmer works at is too abstract to support a business. Developers need an organization that takes their code and turns it into products, which is like, I don't know. I don't like that. So hypothesis number 2, it's getting serious because I busted out Mythical Man Month. And so the author argues, not really, individual programmers cannot deliver large systems. And so like, this book was written in 1975, so I could build it in a night's not a new argument. Like, this is not a new ambition. And so the basic premise is like, yes, an individual can deliver a program, but if you turn that into a product or a system, it basically triples the effort. And then if you do the same thing again, like every time you cross the line, it's like triples again. So like, if we're like estimating how long it's going to take to ship Bluegill, it's like 1 month for MVP, and then you like times 3 to put in like, okay, let's like build out some departments and some staff and let's figure this out. It's times 3, and then to productize it, it's like, okay, Bluegill's just searching for puppies right now. How do we make it to like where it can search anything and index everything? It's like times 3 again, 9 months. So congratulations, you just bought like desktop software. This is a 1975 argument, so let's put it a little bit more modern. Like modern software is like a Tamagotchi, right? And so this is like a lot of words, but it's just so I don't forget. So like think about like a programmer, like each month you get 100 hit points and they go away at the end of the month. And so like to launch Bluegill costs 100 hit points, but it costs you 30 hit points a month to manage. To productize or systematize it costs 100 and costs you 30 a month. So it's like month 1, you launch it, 100 points, gone. You have an MVP, but now you lose 30 a month. So you've got, 60 or 70 to work with. So like months 2 through 3, you launch the next part, and then months 3 through 5, you launch the next part. And you basically have this thing, but it costs you most of your energy to maintain it. And so like you just can't do it on your own, which kind of sucks. But I don't think that's the case either, because like there are individual programmers who sustain businesses and deliver products and systems. So my hypothesis is leverage. You create it through your users. My argument is a programmer can make a living wage through their independent software, and that would indicate their ability to make a disproportionate difference. They don't need a large army of people. They can do it on their own. And this is not just like a fantasy. Like there's this thing called Indie Hackers that just publishes stories of people doing this. There's even a product to teach people to do this. And so like we're actually going to use this 30 by 5. Has anybody heard of 30 by 500? Okay. So we're going to use this to kind of illustrate like the basic premise, right? And so if you have 30 customers, which is the little doodads there, and they each pay you $500, so each dollar is actually 100. I just typo. It's like that's roughly 180 grand a year. So like that sounds like $500 a month sounds like a lot, but if you're like business, this is going to save you $2,000 a month, and it only costs $500. There are people that will pay you to do that, and it's not just like the only formula, right? It's like, so if you want to charge people $100 a month, it's like a simple formula. Then you need 180 customers, and then you make 180,000 a year or something. And it's like maybe that's not what you need. Maybe you need more. I don't know. And so like here you're making a disproportionate difference. And this is not a quote from the author, but he looked like he would be yelling something like this at me. But good luck when you need to scale and compete. And so I also think when you have users, it's great because they'll pay you money if you're giving them value, they'll pay you money, and then you can use that to just like pay your way out of all these other things. Like if you need an HR department, just like pay for Gusto. If you need servers, like do Heroku or AWS. So, and again, so like how do you actually do this? I'm going to tell you a tale of two programmers, and I wanted to pick just like amazingly gender neutral names. So their names are ThingLol and Shoebot. Programmer 1 and Programmer 2. So ThingLol, I also drew this. This is great. So he's like, I want a blog, and he's like, it needs to be fast. It's got to be modern. It's got to be animations, continuous integration, liners, everything. GDPR compliant. Sure, let's research it and do it. And so like he like goes in for months. 6 months he's building this, and he has like this moment of oneness with the flying spaghetti monster in the cloud and learns all these things. And at the end of it, he has this blog that, he hasn't actually written anything. It's just like a very nice system that says hello world. This is not a good way to do it. This is basically Joel's programmer who was like, I'm going to just, I make the best codes. I'm going to go do this and I'll be rich. So Shoebot, on the other hand, he takes like a much more casual approach. He's like, I want a blog, but I'm a junior programmer. I'm going to start by writing a blog post for how to do code snippets and best practices for doing code demos on Medium. And this is like where ThingLol's like, this is super basic. I don't really care about this. But he just keeps going. It's like, okay, I'm going to write about how to customize Medium now. Eventually everybody gets stuck and I want to customize it. And then he like wants to do more, and he's like, well, I need to move to WordPress because Medium is like stealing my content or something. So I'm going to write, how to migrate from Medium to WordPress. And it's like all the way along, he just keeps going. And he solves a problem that he knows other people are having, and he just writes about it. And at the end, 6 months, I guarantee you these two people would both have a nice blog. except Shoebot has a small army of customers or users, and like so again, took them both 6 months. Because Shoebot focused on delivering value to users, he had a disproportionate impact or the ability to, like every user you have, that's like, again, I don't like to think of people too abstractly, but we're going to do it right now. It's like each person you have that reads your stuff that you give something to, this is valuable to you. Like there's something you get in return from that. Even if it's a like or a share, you can like, at the end of the day, you can put some value of leverage behind that. And so again, I'm going to say leverage is your biggest tool as a programmer. If you focus on your users, you deliver valuable things, it will give you power to do things you want to do. So on to Act 2, the wool effect. Wool, and so I guess let's dig a little bit deeper in this question. Okay, so how can independent programmers make a consistent difference inside a large machine? I don't want to go out on my own, but I work somewhere and I want to make a difference. Cool. That's my case too. So Wool is this like really cool post-apocalyptic book that's all about like, oh, the world's ended and everybody lives in silos, and I'm not going to do it justice, but you should read it. It's great. So great that the author decided, I don't want to find a publisher. I just want to publish it directly through Kindle. And he had so many people read his books that he would publish a chapter at a time. He had like Fox and all the people that make movies like tripping over him, like, here's the best deal you want and lots of money. Let us just buy your book and make a movie out of it or sell a hard copy. And like one of the really cool things this author did, he's like, I always wanted digital rights in my, like you can print it and sell it, but I'm always going to sell it online. That's where I'm going to make my money. And he could do that because he had a lot of people who loved his stuff. So why does this matter for software? So if you do something you love and people love what you do, it gives you the autonomy to do what you feel is best. It's the same thing with the guy who's like, I want the best deal for publishing this book. Shipping value to users creates leverage for you. Okay, so it's true on your own, but I argue it's also true at scale. And if you step back from who your users are, I mean, they're whoever consumes what you create. So I've been talking in the context of like software as a service, but I had this realization one day. It's like, so if I'm a product engineer, I have customers, but as a product engineer, I'm a user to people who make the tools I use, like Rails or build tools. But they're also users of people who make the operating system they use, all the way back to kernel engineers to like chipset engineers. So a chipset engineer would be sitting and complaining about their users, but he's talking about people making the kernel, which is weird if you think about like, if you ever Google like #stupid users, like the kernel people are like talking about people who are doing very complicated stuff as their users. And like, don't think about your users as stupid people because they're not. But anyways, we're all users, right? So users are whoever consume what you create. So I want to talk about the first order effect is like when you create something valuable for users, you scale up in this kind of linear fashion, right? And so like, okay, I'm creating 5 value units. This is just a like way to think about illustrating what I'm going to say. Like if we were like, yes, you're right, I'm going to create more valuable things, and I create value for double the amount of users. After like as soon as I walk out of here, I'm going to focus on delivering valuable things. Cool. It's like a first order effect. But again, if you think about who your users really are, like the maker of Rails, their users are Rails programmers, but the Rails programmers' users are people using all of the software that I mentioned earlier. And so like every hour somebody spends making Rails better or Django or whatever you use, it's actually making thousands and thousands or millions and millions of hours of user impact for like users like one chain down. So like, again, this is kind of how you think about it. So like on a small scale, that's like the first order effect. But if you do something that creates value for somebody that creates value for somebody else, like I have a team, right? I'm a tech lead. There's 5 other engineers on my team, and I see they're wasting collectively 2 hours a week writing tickets, and I can automate that with a Slack bot or something. And it's like when you save them 2 hours of work each, that scales. And when you teach somebody who goes on to become a tech lead to do the same thing, like you start saving people thousands and thousands of hours, and it makes you a very valuable person to any organization. And again, I also think, side note, this is also the correct interpretation of the times 10 developer. It doesn't mean you do things 10 times as fast. It means you know how to make, like, I can take the positive things in me and teach you how to do them, and now you can do twice as much times 10, right? or whatever. Bad at math. That's why I'm not a mathematician. Okay, but I'm not a tech lead either. I say the reverse is also true. If you're on a team and you see the tech lead just like maybe he's like or she's really focused on the wrong problems, if you spend time communicating with them and say like, hey, I feel like we're wasting our time here, like that conversation can save your team 10 hours a week, hundreds of hours a year. I don't know, math again. But so, and again, the same thing's true laterally and also like all the way up the chain. So you have to think like investing and changing the process of where you are can really add up. And that's how you basically multiply your leverage wherever you are. So again, this is like what my VP of engineering tells me all the time. Don't spend your time, invest your time. The more you invest your time, the bigger returns you'll get. It's just like money. But again, you have to spend your time at first. So like, it's just but it's like an evolution, right? So that brings me to the final act. A programmer has no name. And so let's do like a little like perspective. Talked about leverage and how to multiply leverage. This is really where I feel like is the like take a deep breath moment of my talk. And this is like what I have to coach myself through as I want to learn everything new, but I can't. Like the main question is like I don't have time to learn every JavaScript framework that comes out, but I really want to be a programmer. I really want to change the world with my softwares. Like you can still do that. Like you can have a dog in a family or play video games and still do the software thing. I think this is like the key. As a actually I want to skip this ticket. It's a good ticket, but I mean a good slide, but okay. So brace yourself. Unpopular opinions ahead. Tools don't matter as much as we think they do. Build using what you know. And like, I know somebody out there's, but Ryan, this saw, if your finger touches it, the blade drops down and it doesn't chop it off. Look, this hot dog can do, it's like they start telling me the coolest thing about the tool that they want to use to build their software. Again, we're not using tools, but again, but like, my point is beware of this programmer, the one who has an amazing garage, but you go out to the parking lot to look at their projects and there's nothing there. It's like, I don't care if you have 10 miter saws, build something. And so Jeff Atwood would say, actually build things instead of just commentating on them. And I would say this is better. I would trust this programmer so much more who has this like random tools he bought from Walmart and kind of a used car lot full of projects to show me. Like I know they make things. A 50% good solution that people actually have solves more problems and survives longer than a 99% solution. Joel in software, same guy that I disagreed with earlier, but this is a great point. And so like, let's do a little simulation. You're a business analyst that wants to make video games. You only know spreadsheet things. Do you make Doom in Excel, or do you just drop everything and learn Unity? And so this is where I'll use a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson: "The person who grasps principles can successfully select their own methods. The person who tries methods, ignoring principles, is sure to have trouble." And so like, somebody made Doom in Excel. And I'm not saying like you should go make Doom in Excel, but I'm saying like that's the right way to solve a problem. Like don't use excuses like I don't know the right tools, like I need to learn something that does WebSockets faster, like Rails is dead, Phoenix is new, long live whatever's next, let's rewrite it all in Rust. It's like, no, that's wrong. Like use whatever you know. Again, not saying the Excel person is better, but I know that their head is at least in the right place, but a very crazy place. And so this is where my slew of Game of Thrones references come in, which if you got the title of my talk, you would know this is a reference to Arya Stark, the girl with no name. A programmer has no language. They have problems to solve. You're not missing out if you don't want to learn the new language. A programmer doesn't have a framework. They just have problems to solve. You're not missing out if you don't want to learn something.js, as long as you're solving problems and building stuff. A programmer has no temperament. This is actually an aside. This person always plays the same little, I don't know how, like, I'm not going to use profanity. I told myself I wouldn't. But, like, he always plays, like, the same terrible person character. It's like the same thing as a programmer. Don't be the one who always loses their temper or the one who always does infrastructure stuff. Like, know how to move beyond that. A programmer has no stack. Like, the best programmers I know, like, if they're doing front-end stuff, if the front-end went out of fashion and everything's API only tomorrow, they would learn how to make APIs. Like, if JavaScript was dead and Haskell was the only language, all the best programmers I know, or all the reasonable programmers I know, 2 months was how long it would take them to be like applying to Haskell jobs and they would be fine. But we spend so much time worrying about this. So again, this is like the crux of my argument is a programmer has no name. Don't focus on all these details. Focus on the problems you want to solve. So a programmer teaches computers to solve problems via programs. Like you don't have to like so closely identify with all these like minutia that we care about, like semicolons and how Vim is way better than Emacs. Slide there. So again, your job is not to deliver pristine back-end code. Your job is to solve problems with code. Your job is to teach computers to solve problems. Code is just your delivery mechanism. And maybe your job doesn't look like building UIs and APIs. And maybe your job is just to facilitate software solving problems. Like I have so much respect for people in our customer support and for people who are doing QA and our product managers and designers. Like they're all very, like the software is impossible to make without them. And, so I'll skip this actually. And so maybe your job is just to like figure out what's blocked in your company and do it. And like maybe this is what every day feels like. You're like customer support and programmer front end, back end, like just do whatever's missing. And like this is like the technique that I use for this is I channel different engineers. Like if you need to do something architect-y, like go and meet these people and figure out how they solve problems, pair with them, be friends with them. And like over time you'll know like when I need to solve this type of problem, I need to act this certain way. But you'll have so much flexibility and you can solve so many different types of problems if you just like one step back from yourself. So the same thing is true with non-engineers. And so like if you fix a bug in your customer support or success process, is that very much different than fixing a bug in your software? And also if you do that, don't forget you're a programmer, so you can probably fix it like, and you can automate it, which you should do. And so play whatever role it takes. Last Game of Thrones reference, first meme. So let's review goals. I wanted to demonstrate that leverage is your biggest tool. I feel like we did that. I wanted to show you the power of investing your time to multiply your leverage. I feel like we did that. I wanted to explain to you why not to care about every last little thing that comes up on Hacker News or Twitter. I feel like we did that. And we're just going to do a quick epilogue to wrap up. So the hardest part is actually what comes next. All this stuff is about learning to go from an individual contributor into software leadership. And you can contribute individually and still be a software leader. It's about like, how do I really create leverage in the world or in companies or wherever I am? And so like we all start as people who just make things like one-off, individual contributors. But there's like, there are other roles you can do, not just management, but like staff engineering or the whole role is about how to create change in waves and waves of programmers. And it's like a really fulfilling goal. Or engineering management if you want to go that route. And there's a lot beyond code too that you can learn that will help you, which is what I promised I wouldn't teach you, and I'm not going to. I just want to put it on the slide. The end. Questions, comments, concerns, massive